this is Chris Solberg from Rural Resurrection. Today we have with us Gretchen Reichter and Deb Hite from Emmetsburg, Iowa. Emmetsburg was an overnight town during RAGBRAI 22. Although our time in Emmetsburg was short, the community intrigued me, and that's why we're interviewing a couple of their representatives today. Gretchen and Deb, please let our watchers know who you are and what you do for Emmetsburg.
I'm Gretchen Reichter. I work for the city here in Emmetsburg. I wear a lot of hats, but essentially it boils down to marketing and communications and then working in community and economic development.
And I'm Deb Hite. I'm the Emmetsburg Chamber of Commerce Director. I too wear many hats as we have a Welcome Center here. We have our own little radio station, and then I'm become involved with the visioning committee and different city organizations with Gretchen.
Okay, thank you very much. I always like to sort of set the table for either my readers or watching right now. And tell me a little bit of the history of Emmetsburg and a little bit about Robert Emmett.
Okay, well, the history of Emmetsburg goes back to the mid 1800s. The actual date, I don't think you care, but it's real debatable because, of course, nobody was recording things back then. Robert Emmett was about 25 years old man. He was an Irish patriot, fought for Ireland's freedom. And so they wanted to name it after him, and they did. So it hence became Emmetsburg.
Great. Now he fought for Irish rights from what I've read. And so there's definitely some Irish roots there in the city. And so that leads us back into the discussion about the annual event that you have there, which is pretty
St.
big
Patrick's.
event for the community. It's like the main event for Emmetsburg. Is that correct?
That's correct. They've been celebrating St. Patrick's Day since 1960. And that was, of course, there was always the Irish history was important to the people here, but there was 3 or 4 gentlemen strong in their Irish heritage that decided we needed to celebrate this. So they just walked out on the street one day and decided to have a parade, and that's where it all started. And then at that same time, Emmetsburg became sister cities with Dublin, Ireland. I think it was at that same time, might have been a few years difference, and so we have that claim to fame also.
And so every year, an Irish dignitary will actually come from Ireland to enjoy those festivities and be a part of the whole, the week and everything that's going on. So we actually have that tie to Ireland when we're talking about this Irish event, which is kind of fun. But that's really the strong weekend every year where you invite your friends and your family and they're actually going to come for the event in the small town.
And everybody's Irish for a day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody's wearing green. We have green horses, green beer. We have the Brian Baru bagpipers that come down, and so they go in every bar and they're in the parade, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, your community has really bought into the Irish feel there. I mean, going back to the sister city with the dignitary that comes down, you don't get that in many small communities that they celebrate their Irish descent or their Polish descent. They don't get that dignitary that comes to town. So how is your history with Dublin or your communication with Dublin been over the years?
That's a good question. You know, I think our St. Pat's committee are the ones that reach out to the dignitaries, you know, to the legislature over there to get somebody to come. And honestly, I'm not Irish, but I am for a day. And I don't know the true answer to that question. I think the president or the chairman of the St. Pat's committee is the one who's usually done that.
Oh, they reached out to them. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about RAGBRAI, that rolling party that blew through Emmetsburg last year. How did the town prepare for the event? I know this is not something, you know, that regularly happens for these towns. So what are the biggest things that really stick out in mind that most of these other towns that might have a RAGBRAI or another event come through their community that they don't normally have?
Yeah, well, I think that RAGBRAI does, like the actual organization does a great job of preparing towns. Obviously here it's been more of the overnight prep than just a pass-through community. But there's essentially the RAGBRAI Bible that you follow as a town, and it breaks up the entire planning process into an organizational structure. So this committee with subcommittees, unfortunately, since we had been through it before, some of those same people were our committee chairs again.
Right.
Now, if we ask them a third time, I don't know that the answer is going to be the same. But we had those people who already had done it once or were able to follow. Yeah, we're able to follow that book, and it provides like helpful tips and directions and a really strong timeline for goals that you should be meeting. And then you kind of just follow the process with RAGBRAI too, as for like when they're when all the riders are getting the wristband or registration either submitted or back. So that was pretty smooth. And then our committee met all the time.
That's important to me as the chairman, and important that everybody is not only working on what they need to work, but they hear what everybody else is doing, because that communication makes it such a solid event. If you know who you need to call, you know what's going on, it just makes it go really smooth. And we'd been through it 8 years earlier and was extremely successful. And so I had been wanting it back every year for 8 years. And I'm glad we had it, but even I too am to the point where I don't want to do it again. We will though, Emmetsburg will bring it back. Next time I just won't be in charge.
I was one of the youngest committee members. So me and a person named Joel from Emmetsburg have basically been told, you're handling it next time.
We've handed the crown off to them.
Voluntold.
Yeah, and Joel comes from a family who like they're avid RAGBRAIers, so we're all for it.
You know, you just can't. I just don't think you can spend too much time in preparation. And the big thing is, when we had it 8 years ago, we had 10,000 people more this time than we had 8 years ago. So that's added porta pots, that's added campgrounds, and you really have to get your community wrapped around housing them in a small town like this. Like if you're having Ames and Des Moines this year picked, they probably have plenty of space for that number of people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was my apology.
That's fine.
Better shut that off. But anyway, it was a great time. And Ann and Matt, the organizers, are wonderful to work with. It was their first year. They say they learned a lot from us, but I think we still took a lot of good instruction from them. So yeah.
Okay.
And it's definitely good for your town. What a way to showcase your city.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like our 5 Island Lake, that's so important to us here in Emmetsburg. And we get to showcase that too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get into 5 Island Lake here in a bit. So outside of that RAGBRAI Bible, is there anything that other than communication, which is key to a lot of different successful events, is there anything that like really sticks out in your mind that was not in that Bible, but it's something that another community could take away from this that makes them go, oh yeah, we didn't think about that?
I don't know that we do, did we?
Yeah, I know. I mean, one thing, this might not be exactly what you're asking, but in Emmetsburg, I think the community was on board from day one. And that wasn't the case. That isn't always the case for every community. Because all of a sudden it seems it's either a good surprise or a scary surprise, or both. So some communities, like you just have residents who are thinking, oh, all these people are coming through and they're gonna get the town dirty.
That's not the case.
No, RAGBRAIers are awesome. It's such a good environment. People are responsible. Honestly, locals are usually the troublemakers.
We didn't have any of those that I remember.
No.
We only had one arrest. We had 30,000 people and we had one arrest.
Wow.
And that was wasn't that an accident?
I don't know.
Anyway, it wasn't a big deal. People think they're going to come to town, they're going to be rowdy, they're going to trash your town. You couldn't tell they were here. The next day, everything was just cleaned up, just perfect. For me, the like Gretchen said, the community, you never know if they're ready, because it seems like you have to get people on board for housing. And we went out, my husband and I went out on an ATV, and it was just remarkable how many people are in town and how orderly it is. And the one place I didn't get was up on Lakeshore Drive. And I had people along Lakeshore Drive just bubbling with the stories that they had of people who, they had like a block party, but or a street party. And one of our local former presidents of the bank stopped me and talked for like 15-20 minutes. He was so excited about all the people that were there and how well it went and everything. And that's what, you know, that means that your community is being represented in a very good way, as being welcoming and you know, and having a good time. And that's probably the one thing we couldn't really measure, because the housing this year was done on Facebook. So you weren't really sure how all that was, at least I wasn't as chairman. I wasn't sure how that all that was going to come off, and it came out wonderfully.
So anyway, I guess I'm just saying, get all of your cheerleaders like out and in front of people to begin with, and get everybody really excited, because it really is a good thing for every community that gets to participate.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Having the cheerleaders to lead the way to really build that support. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start discussing Emmetsburg as a destination town. And from what I see about Emmetsburg, and I've done a little bit of research, I've seen that there's quite a bit of different things to do and see in Emmetsburg. But the top two things that really, of course, stand out to me are Five Island Lake and the casino. And going into Five Island Lake, the thing that really impressed me there, because we basically had a place to stay right on Five Island Lake, just across the street, but the Lakeshore Drive actually runs along the lake. A lot of times in these lakes and in these small towns, you have all these houses that are backing to the lake. And so you don't have that road that's running along the lake. And I thought it was just a great setting for anybody that's in that town. I saw joggers running along that road during the day and in the morning, and then I knew that they were just local joggers. And it was just a great setting for the community. Tell me more about Five Island Lake and what amenities it offers and what events that are held throughout the year at Five Island Lake, sorry.
Yeah, well, it is 5 miles too. So I think that's one thing that's surprising. And probably most people who were here in town for RAGBRAI didn't realize. But when you're in town and you see the lake, it's just the South Bay. And so there's so much more lake. It just keeps going and going. It's a long, narrow body of water. So people think,
acres.
yeah, it looks like we have this little pond in town and that's it. But it actually is, it's quite large. Well, it's larger than it looks in town. It's not an Okoboji, but it's large. So yeah, I mean, you go past the railroad tracks and then it just keeps going and going out into the country, which is really great. But yeah, compared to like an Okoboji, it's such a family friendly, relaxed environment. Because in Okoboji, like we couldn't take our boat that we have here in Emmetsburg to Okoboji because the waves get so big in the summer from all these big boats and the traffic, and it's just a different experience. And not to slam Okoboji, obviously that's fun and like, yeah, that is its own thing. But Emmetsburg is just different, where you can come and like in the morning, I was telling Deb this, you can go on a walk in the morning and you go out to the T dock, which is in town, and there might be a little bit of fog still lifting and the sun's coming up, and you just have a fisherman trolling alongside the shore, drinking his coffee and just relaxing. Like it's just a peaceful environment, and it's really like the lake as an example of what small town life is like, where it's just slow paced and like you don't have a care in the world and you're just safe and happy where you are. But then you can also go tubing and have a great time with your family, and it's a safe place and the kids can swim and you're not worried about all the boat traffic. But then
is a big
yeah,
thing.
yep, a good, just to enjoy the lake as like an asset of nature. It's a good place. But we do have kayak and canoe rentals too. So if somebody comes to the community and they don't have a boat, like you can still get out physically on the lake. You can enjoy the beach on the south side, which is roped off. So it's just a nice, enjoyable place, and you don't have to be like stressed about getting on and off and worry about all these other people or money.
We have a developer in town that has a sign up that says that if your house was on our lake, you'd already be here, because so many people come through Emmetsburg on their way to the lakes, and that's great. I'm happy for them, but this is the pace that I like here in Emmetsburg.
Yeah. Or like this past weekend, we just had a fishing tournament here. Called the Yellow Bass Bash, and so there's 200 fishermen that get to be a part of that, and probably more people who come just to be a part of the fun. But I am not one who wants to sit outside when it's negative 23 degrees outside. But, I mean, people love it, and that's a nice thing too. Like, we get to draw in people to the community throughout the year, whether it's that or, you know, summer you can do all the things when it's open water. But then like snowmobiles and everything this time of the year are fun too.
Okay, so you basically found a niche. It's not the Okoboji constant recreation, big boats, and thousands and thousands of people. It's more of a laid back niche for the community. You're still having your events, your fishing tournaments, and all that, but it's more of a family atmosphere that you're trying to not sell, but it markets the community in a positive light as a family centric community.
Yep, exactly. Like, some people might go to Wisconsin or like northern Minnesota to just be at a peaceful lake, but it's right here.
There you go.
We're lucky to have people with the Five Island Lake Association that run events on the lake too during the summer months, and they have family oriented activities for them to do. We have a homebrew fest that we have along the South Bay at Five Island, and that's a chamber event sponsored by the radio station here. And that was a positive draw. At first, we had it off the highway in a place that had a perfect setup for it. But when we took it down to the south end of Five Island Lake, then it really grew. So it's a wonderful backdrop for all those type of events.
Wow. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. Is that just personal home brewers that are just having a contest?
Yeah,
Okay.
people, I didn't realize so many people enjoyed brewing their own beer or making their own wine. And so, yeah, we have one every August. It's the second weekend in August. This year will be the 12th. And we, of course, follow all the guidelines for the IABD, but homebrew is not regulated by license. So we have that even in a separate area, because that there the IABD can't regulate the alcohol content of homebrew. So it just brings a lot of people. I was surprised at how many people enjoy tasting homebrew. That's like, the craft beer phase right now is really big. People like a lot of different flavors in beers. So it's fun. We have a band, we have judging, we have a rib fest, we give away prizes for People's Choice in the homebrew. It's just a good time. We need to grow it more. We hope to grow it more. We're starting our 7th year this year, but it's a perfect place for it. It's down on Silver Park by the lake.
Great. So the chamber does all the marketing and the setup for that, and it's all volunteer run and all that.
Yep,
Great.
that's right.
Okay. Now let's move on to the casino. I know that's a private entity, but do you use the casino in any of your marketing efforts for the community?
Definitely use that as, like, when we're looking at the full picture of things to do in Emmetsburg, definitely promoting that. The casino isn't for everybody, but it's really nice to have that as an asset to draw people in. You can stay there. There's good food there. If you just want to go out for half an hour and do something, you can do that. It doesn't have to be the whole weekend. But it's a huge thing to have in a community, and it constantly draws new folks to Emmetsburg, which is great.
It's fun to drive the parking lot and see all the license plates, how far people come. And I've heard there's people come from Nebraska, come up to Emmetsburg. They like the fact that it's not, it's a little bit, again, a smaller venue. It's not so crowded, that type of thing. So yeah, a lot of people that come from a long distance. Chamber is actually having our annual event there here in a couple of weeks. So it's fun to work with them with their ballroom. We kind of exchange back between the ballroom and the community center, which we never talked about the community center on the lake, but the shores of Five Islands, a wonderful place on the lake. But anyway, yeah, it's a great place to have events too.
Yeah, and another really important piece of the casino for our community and the county is that every casino in Iowa had partners with an organization that holds the gambling license, and then they grant out so much money from the casino fund or their gaming funds. And so the Palo Alto County Gaming Development Corporation gives over $1 million to cities, schools, and nonprofits in the county every year. So that makes a huge difference for continuing to invest in our communities for the future. Some of the things that RAGBRAIers and visitors get to enjoy when they're in the community. I mean, we have our trail system, we have like playground equipment, family friendly things, lake amenities, there's all sorts of stuff. So that is not what people think about when they're thinking about going to the casino. But hey, if that prompts you to put another 5 in the slot machine, then great.
The other thing is the owners of our casino actually give 6% to the nonprofit group, whereas the state only requires 3%. And so for our rural area, it's really beneficial to have that, because that makes a lot more possibilities for the county to enjoy the profits and build a better environment, county for people to come.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on my history, I wrote some of the grants to the casino in Osceola, which had the same type of grant program, and then they would do a little bit awards announcement at the casino, and of course I threw a few dollars into slots at that time just to say that I donated to that grant.
Yeah,
Right. They always give out the awards on the first Friday night or Saturday in March. And then at the end of the night, they say, okay, everybody go ahead, go downstairs and start next year's hunt. It's fun.
Okay, let's round this out with some new activity. Anything that's going on downtown, or if you have downtown revitalization plans, new trails or new comprehensive plan, or any future plans to do anything in Emmetsburg to help continue to grow in the community.
Yep. So since I've started my job, which is in late 2019, I feel like all we've done is plan. Well, not all we've done. We get things done too, but like we're constantly planning for the future. And the greatest piece of that is actually implementing things, not just having a piece of paper. But we started our community-wide strategic planning process in 2020, and then a good portion of that took place in 2021. So our municipal utility, our school district, and our city all work together in conjunction on strategic plans. And so we have separate plans, but then also a community-wide plan with basically like 6 priorities that we developed for the next, now I guess it's the next 5-ish years. Downtown revitalization is one of those pieces. So about 10, not quite 10 years ago, Emmetsburg did a facade project, but we were looking at doing another one of those. So we will apply for some state funds to be able to revitalize some buildings in our downtown. And so that'll probably happen within the next 3 years, I would imagine. It does take substantial funds from private property owners in the city. So that's really the big piece of figuring out where that works in the city budget when we're also looking at bigger infrastructure needs. But we have that piece of downtown revitalization. And then currently the city is working with a private property owner to turn an upper story of a building that was once a Masonic temple into 4 apartments. And they're going to be really neat units. The window, or the unit with windows that overlooks Highway 18, that has 11-foot tall windows. So it's impressive.
Wow.
It's just really cool
Yeah.
to see the building with some of those original features. The state really pushes some of those projects to try to rehab the building as it would have originally looked. So with those windows, it had been filled with like cinder block and windows were smaller, so they returned those to the full scale. But anyway, so that's a project that's $500,000 plus investment, so a huge thing in a small town, and housing is such a need for us. So that's tackling one of those. And then hopefully we'll get another application submitted for a Catalyst grant, which is another state grant program to work on historic buildings. And that would be a mix of like commercial ground floor and upper story housing again. So we're really trying to take advantage of as many of those programs as we can. And we are excited when property owners are willing to reinvest in the community.
That's right.
And I mean, it really speaks to Emmetsburg as a community and people wanting to stay here and invest here.
We also worked with Trees Forever and Iowa State University in doing a visioning for Emmetsburg. And we have a committee which was kind of born out of the strategic plan because, excuse me, the strategic plan encompassed all of the town instead of just the city or just the school. And so we have Gretchen and myself and the high school superintendent, excuse me, and somebody from the community and the newspaper and the Iowa State University and I'm missing some, the hospital. And we all gather and we identified plans. There's 4 plans for us to improve, like a mural park, a pocket park in the downtown, and one of our underused parks, how to make that, and using rain gardens and floors and making it something that's very usable and very pretty in the town. Transportation connections, like for bike trails, how to get across the town, because we have trails, but they kind of stop at the edge of town, and then you have to follow the streets to get to the trails in the south part of town. So we have that for connecting and making safe routes. And what else do we do? We had another one.
The Harlem Park.
That's the one I was talking about, the rain swell and all that, rain gardens.
Community connections, mural park. Oh, there's also a concept to put back a boulevard from the highway leading to the lake. At one point, there was a landscaped boulevard down the middle of the road, and so we developed a concept for that as well. That's, I think, a longer term outlook.
All of these came, all of them were quite expensive, but we're working to hopefully get to a point where we can get more grants, maybe become a 501c3. That's in the works now. Are we or aren't we going to do that? Which will give us more advantages as far as being able to fund those things. So it's I don't know what our time frame was. I think it's just as the money rolls in, kind of, we're doing a little bit of couple different areas. So yeah, it's fun.
And then Deb had mentioned how the trails kind of stop on the outside of the city. We have a trail committee that continuously fundraises and applies for grants for the trail system. So they have applied for a gaming grant this year to extend the trail even further. Right now, at least the northern part of it starts at our community center, which is located just on the west shore of Five Island Lake, within Town Bay. And then I think extent is it about 6 miles now?
Yes, I think it is. It may be a little bit more.
So continuously growing that. And then we just recently, the city and college and school and hospital have all been talking about creating a pathway or a trail from our middle school and high school to the college, Iowa Lakes Community College here in Emmetsburg, because that's where our library and wellness center are. So we have a lot of kids going back and forth. And then the college also has received a grant to be able to put an outdoor fitness court through the National Fitness Campaign, which is basically like a circuit training system. And so it's free, it's outdoor, public, and you can use it at any time. So hopefully just connecting more of these elements and building off one another.
Ideally, ideally our trail will go clear around the lake. So, we said it's 5 miles long. So it'll be, 11, 12 miles by the time we get the ends connected.
So everybody keep gambling so we can get that 6%. Donations are fine too.
So it sounds like that you're going after a number, all these different committees are going after all these different grants. I'm guessing there's not just one designated grant writing person within the town. Each committee finds people to work together to write these grants, to submit them to ensure successfulness. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, don't think that Gretchen doesn't write her share. She does. She's excellent at it. But we do have grant writers through Iowa Lakes Community College that are very instrumental in helping a lot of people write their grants.
Oh, that's great.
Some gals, it's that Iowa Lakes Community College is amazing what it affords us here in Emmetsburg also.
Yeah, that's a great resource to lean on to be able to get a little bit of insight on some of that stuff, which increases your likelihood of being awarded those grants.
That's right.
It's a great resource to have.
Mm-hmm.
So, All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for your time. This has been great. For those of you who've been watching, if you like these interviews and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe. And remember, don't just survive, thrive.